I don't sleep anymore. I don't mean I'm an insomniac. I don't mean I'm restless until 2 a.m. clicking through channel after channel because I'm stressed about my bills. I mean, I'm always awake. Always. Always. As in, I haven't shut my eyes to sleep for a while now. As in, I don't even remember dreams anymore. So, yes, I never, ever sleep. But luckily for me, neither does this city. Hey guys, Professor Bill of Comic Book University, and in this week's Spotlight on Story, we're going to be talking about the Marvel story, Morbius, the Living Vampire. This is going to be the second volume, part of the Marvel Now storyline. This is very different from the standard Morbius that we get, and it's great. This was released in, its published date of March of 2013, but it was released 2 months prior to that. So it was in our grubby little hands just a little bit faster. The writer on this, Joe Keatinge. The artist, penciler and inker is Richard Elson. Antonio Fabella is the color artist. VC's Clayton Cowles does letters. The cover artist is Marco Cecchetto. I hope I didn't destroy that name because that is a gorgeous cover, an absolutely amazing, beautiful, gorgeous cover. And the editor on this is Sana Amanat, the creator of Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel. So this is a cool story. I dig this. This story has some problems though. What's going to happen here is there's a retelling of Morbius's history, and it's actually, they add to it, they change a little bit, and I have absolutely no complaints about it whatsoever. This started off really well. Guys, on top of that, this is actually going to go back to Spider-Man, issue number 699.1. This was... we're actually going to start here where a whole bunch of characters are escaping from the raft. This is when Dr. Octopus is first, they're showing that he's leaving. He's going to go and he's going to take over Peter Parker's body and become the superior Spider-Man. That, of course, happened in the following issue, the following true issue, issue number 700. But in 699.1, we're going to see that Morbius and the Lizard escape. Now, everybody's going to have their own little subplot that goes someplace, but this issue is mostly Morbius's. And is going to retell his story where he grew up in, and go, you know what, realistically, just go and check out Morbius Explained in a Minute. It should be attached with this video. But for the most part, it just explains his life growing up with a rare blood disease in Greece. And he and his best friend, his only friend, they wind up being really close together. He has an accident where he winds up jacking himself up, breaking a couple of bones, at the very least his arm. And his friend is like, dude, I will never leave you again. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And he does keep with that promise. But there's a couple ethical issues with the way they both wind up going to college, to university together. And this is in Greece. And what happens? They start working on a project to cure him of this ridiculously rare blood disease. Unfortunately, Morbius, he feels like he can't wait anymore. Just a little paper cut causes him to hemorrhage painfully. So he's like, I don't have any time left. I need you to start experimenting on me. And he's like, okay, fine. But whether this works or not, this is the last time that we're ever going to, hang out with each other. We're done because I can't do this anymore. All right. Like this, you putting me through this ethical dilemma. I'm only doing this because you're my best friend. So it is actually the last time they ever hang out because, of course, the experiment goes painfully wrong and Dr. Michael Morbius becomes Morbius the Living Vampire. So again, he is a vampire in the scientific sense, not a true vampire because he wasn't cursed mystically, only scientifically. So, very different. In fact, when Doctor Strange wound up destroying all of the vampires with the Darkhold, Morbius was left completely unscathed because he's not a standard vampire. He's a living vampire. Can't change into a bat or a cloud of smoke or a wolf or anything like that. So, no. Anyway, what does happen, though, is that when he turns into this living vampire, his first victim that he kills is his best friend. Yeah, it's really sad. Like it's horrible, and I think it's written well enough that you get it, just how messed up that story is. Um, in fact, what is the? Sorry, I didn't actually think to check the writers on this. Okay, so Joe Keatinge with Dan Slott, and those are the writers on this. Valentin Delandro and Mark Ceccato are the artists, and Antonio Fabella. Those are he's the color artist. Also, for the sake of conversation, VC's Chris Eliopoulos, which is interesting, Greek name, and the editor, really quick, Stephen Wacker. Okay, so that's that. But the story itself that we're going to be reading here, the Morbius issue number 1 through 9, issue number 1 takes place immediately after this. So once he escapes to the mainland in New York from the raft, that's where we're going to take place in Morbius issue number 1. So he's running through the streets, and this is not going to be nearly as detailed as, like, the Black Panther story, where you'll have, like, craziness all over the place. You'll have, the story takes place here. Oh no, it's actually over here. Oh no, it's actually going to take place over here. It's not going to be one of those. All right, what's actually happening here is they're going to do a couple things out of place, but you're going to be able to follow along perfectly fine. There's no confusion whatsoever as to which timeline that you're actually in. So that's done very well here. And this first issue is a fantastic issue. It's what happens afterwards where we start to go, I feel a little bit wrong. It's like this issue was the pitch, and it was literally pitch perfect, and everything afterwards, there was a great direction with a fantastic plot, but I feel that each individual story wasn't handled so great. But let's get into the actual story itself, because it, like I said, the explanation of the story itself is pretty cool. So we see the advantages of being vampire-ish. We see that Morbius is running away from a bunch of bad guys. You assume bad guys, and he's fighting off these bad guys, and all of a sudden he gets shot, killed by a shotgun blast to his chest after he already took a bullet to his shoulder, right? He's jacked up. He's FUBAR at this point. And we see that we go back in time a little bit where just about 4 days ago, he just landed in New York City from escaping from the raft, the superhero or supervillain prison. So there's this guy who meets him there, and he's like, hey, man, you need to go to Brownsville. Like, you need to get away from here. I know you got off the raft. Here, you got to give you a change of clothes. You're all set. You need to go to Brownsville. So what's Brownsville? It's like, dude, there's all these superheroes in the city. Whatever you're going to do, trying to get back to your Horizon Labs that you're talking about, you need to lay low for a couple of days. Go to this place called Brownsville. It's practically off the map. The superheroes seem to have never heard of it. There are no superheroes there. So crime, of course, is completely out of control. That is a great concept. To me, that's a great concept, because there's always the question of, which came first, the superheroes or the villains? There seem to be an awful lot of villains out there, especially in Batman lore. These villains, there were no villains, but all of a sudden there's Batman, and then suddenly villains show up, right? And this isn't a slight on Batman. I love Batman. But the idea here is this shows that if there aren't any heroes in a city, then the crime factor is going to go there. And man, you name it. The Magia is there currently, but there's so many different factions that are showing up and vying for power over Brownsville. It's a great place to sell drugs, which is basically the best hope that you're going to get for relief in this horrible, wretched city. Now, it is called Brownsville, and I'm very happy to report that there's not a whole lot of brown people there, all right? It seems like it's mostly white people, because that would have been a really big, like, wait a second. So it's just called Brownsville. It's a very, very generic name. So I'm okay with it. Work out your own issues if there are some. But he spends 4 nights in Brownsville. He gets attacked by some punk who tries to steal his wallet. He sees gunshots everywhere. His 3rd night's pretty cool. But his 4th night, that's where all of a sudden he sees this guy trying to mess with this girl. Is like, I want your son to be a part of my outfit. And talking about outfits, this guy looks like he's straight out of the 80s. You remember the first Terminator movie? Hey man, no, what does that one punk say to the Terminator? He's like, nice night for a walk, huh? Laundry night, huh? Something like that. So, like, dressed completely like an 80s punk. He's got a spiked-haired mohawk, and it's blue, and piercings. He just looks really freaky, really weird. Anyway, this guy is supposed to be a pretty important guy. Well, he dies, but it's not for a little while, all right? But the idea is that this guy was actually genetically modified to be extremely powerful. So he's able to go one-on-one against Morbius. He might have won if he tried a little bit harder, but it turns out that as bad as this guy is, he's actually the guy who's keeping everything in order, which is interesting. So he's a total jerk. Make no mistake, there's no doubt about it. He's a total jerk. All right. And this whole first issue is just establishing what a jerk, not just he can be, but that he actually is. Not a good guy, not by any stretch of the imagination. So as we're moving along in the story here, we see that Morbius is, and here's an issue that I have with the writing. He lets this guy go. He gets punched and he gets kicked, just because the guy thinks that he's a meth head, maybe an albino or something like that. He's just like, you're out of my league, man. Just leave me alone. And Morbius gets punked out. So Morbius is like, okay, I'm cool to let it go. But when the next issue shows up, when the next issue pops up, Morbius goes back to the guy. No, literally, not the next day, the next minute. The guy's walking away down the street, and Morbius runs up. He's like, hey, man, I just want you to know, I'm not a nice guy. Bam! And knocks him down to the ground. The guy's like, oh, that's cool. And there's a lot of exposition back and forth. He's like, hey, man, shoot this guy. So I was like, oh, wow, this guy's not alone. I should have known better. So some guy in the corner shoots him in the shoulder. So he starts running away at this point. They chase him down and put a shotgun shell in his chest. I thought this was going to be a little bit more, that they were going to make this a bigger deal, but they didn't. It's just the idea that apparently Morbius can't die. Well, he can die, but he's always going to come back. And it doesn't matter that he's been 4 days without blood. He really needs blood to function at peak capacity once every 3 days at the minimum. So he's not functioning, at that peak right now. Nonetheless, this guy pretty much manhandles him. So he leaves, and there's this girl that he'd met who doesn't like him at all. You know what I'm saying? He's just, stay away from me, leave me alone, I don't want to talk to you, bum. Probably, and thinks that he's a meth head also. Well, he sees this other girl, Becky, who's actually a cool people. Later on becomes his sidekick, though he doesn't like, and there's actually a lot of funny verbal forays between these two about, I'm your sidekick. I don't do sidekicks. Yeah, but I'm your sidekick. Like, it's great. A bunch of monster leaguers, not quite the Midnight Sun, but Legion of Monsters from Monsterville. They show up at one point, and she goes and says to them, oh yeah, I'm his sidekick. And they're saying, really? Because Morbius doesn't seem like the type to have a sidekick. That's really weird. She calls him Mike. They hang out. It's actually a really cool relationship. I love the way that they built this relationship. It was enjoyable. One of the problems, though, is that the storylines seem high concept, and they're just kind of cut off and ended. Like, we're trying to rush along, but there's not a whole lot else that we're rushing to. So I feel like the story could have breathed a lot better, while it could have just stayed more consistent. Either way, this girl, Becky, goes and says, listen, you just got shot. You just got, killed, but you're okay now. Apparently shotgun blasts to the chest don't faze you too much. Listen, why don't you come to this abandoned theater? It's like, okay, what are you doing out here? You look like you're 16 or so. She's like, yeah, that's about right. It's like, why don't you go home? It's like, are you not up to date? You're not very perceptive, are you? This is my home. This is how we live in Brownsville. Are you new here? Like, he's still calling people ma'am, and it's like surprises people. Like, what? Ma'am? So it's interesting. They really do show him to be that fish out of water here, you know. And I really do like the way that he interacts, or at least the outside concept of how he's interacting with the people. The actual verbal interactions, they feel forced. I feel like there's a lot of words that don't need to be put in, and they don't really help. They kind of, I don't know what they do, but they definitely don't help in showing any kind of a relationship building. You know what I'm saying? And that's really what this story should have focused on. Because the high concept here is that Morbius is actually going to become a hero, a vigilante. The worst kind of vigilante, the Punisher-style vigilante, that I'm going to rip out your throat with my teeth, you know, in order to win the day kind of vigilante. And he does that multiple times in these 9 issues for this second volume of Morbius the Living Vampire. I'm so sad that this could have been so much better. It's not bad. It's just not the great that it should have been. Anyway, they did get to cancel it on their own terms, though, so that was good. Either way, the way that this story plays out is that this guy, St. Pierre, I think he's calling himself, if I remember correctly, he wants this kid, this one woman's kid, to join his posse, to start teaching him to, you know, grow up and be one of his men, one of his button men, basically. Now, St. Pierre is really just, and I can't remember, maybe St. Germain. Anyway, this saint guy, he's actually just, Noah. His first name is Noah. Let's just call him Noah for now. He was actually just a regular guy who was really angry. And some people on the outside, corporate level, all right, criminal corporate level, they're like, he's not a big guy, but we can work with that anger and that passion that he's got. So they take him and they experimented on him and made him a meta. Not some super huge meta, but he could go up against somebody like Morbius. Again, go check out Morbius Explained in a minute to know exactly what Morbius is capable of. So he gets, they go at it back and forth, but Morbius eventually winds up biting out his throat. Then his girlfriend and a whole bunch of other people are like, dude, you don't realize what you just did. He's the only one holding the fabric together. Now that he's down, you're going to have all these different crews coming in trying to take over, and Brownsville's about to be fallen into chaos. Well, push comes to shove, and the people who made Noah want him back because they don't want anybody to trace back what they're doing. That's a concept that could have been taken a whole lot better than it actually was. They could have done so much more with that, and I feel like it was just such a missed opportunity. Wow. I would love for this story to be rewritten. You know what I'm saying? Just done better for all intents and purposes. Anyway, so what winds up happening is that there's a version of the Rose. Now, who is the Rose? I'm going to spoil it for you. We never actually find out. And it's fine because the idea is that it didn't actually matter. He thought he was a lot more important than he really was. But it turns out he's no different than him, no different than Noah. He's the middleman's middleman. You know what I'm saying? So we never even get to see the high crime dude, but we do get to see the main middleman. And then, but what Morbius is dealing with is all the middlemen at this point. This was great. This was great. And it turns out that the middleman is actually Morbius's father. That's right. Morbius's father was never really in his life. You get to find out enough about his father in this, but the story doesn't go on to really give you exasperating details. In fact, Morbius never really finds out that this is his father who's messing with him this whole way. We never really find out, you know, what was going on. So this story could be picked up. It genuinely could. Yeah. Needs to be written a little bit better. That's all. The art was pretty good. A little bit. Actually, the art was great. Later on, the art's not so great, and it's when the Superior Spider-Man actually shows up. That's around issue number 11 or 12 of the Superior Spider-Man storyline. Is when he actually shows up here. There's a character who shows up, Nicoletta Harlow, and she is not. It's not a very interesting character at all. Issue number 6 is actually going to be her first appearance, and she just walks in. She's got these big fistigons like Chase Stein from The Runaways would have. Go check out Chase Stein Explained in a Minute to learn about the fistigons. But, and she just walks in, and that's all she's really got is the fistigons, and she's 25 or younger, but she's apparently smarter, or at least she's able to one-up a lot Superior Spider-Man and Morbius and all of Horizon Labs for all intents and purposes. And she just literally walks through and humiliates all these other characters. And it just doesn't play off very well. We don't see what happens to her. She can go wherever, but she just walks literally with Superior Spider-Man, walks all over these characters. Here's a character who was not done well, that was not earned. And we never get to see any really good reason why she's able to do all these things. Again, this is not a perfect story. It's just there are so many seeds here that's perfect. And let me tell you the main reason why I really did love this story. Because I feel like I could take the entirety of these 9 issues, 10 if you want to count Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man number 699.1. I could take all these stories and make an amazing Marvel Superheroes adventure, a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, a spacefaring adventure, any of these kinds of, role-playing game systems, and make a totally awesome adventure off of these. This was really great in the concept form for a campaign, a role-playing campaign. Fantastic. Like I said, the plot was not necessarily flawless, but I'm going to say close enough that the word flawless is in my head. It's rattling around in there because, man, this was really good. To make Morbius, like, this is a wretched city that doesn't have any superheroes, that even somebody like Morbius, they're willing to take him on as a superhero. And you see him trying to do the Batman thing in some regards. He's got the earpiece in his head talking to his sidekick, Becky, for a while. It's not working out for him. A whole bunch of crazy things happen, but it wasn't written as good as I feel like it should have been. I feel like the way that I read this is that the writer was nervous when writing this. That's what it kind of feels like. Like you're instead of trying to write a fantastic story, I feel, and I could be wrong, this is just my gut, I feel like the writer was writing this always thinking, oh, people are going to complain about this, so let me throw this in there. Ooh, people are going to complain about that, let me throw this in there. It's like I feel like he was writing defensively, if that makes any sense. And that's a shame. That's a real shame. I personally find that some of my videos, when I make my videos, sometimes, like when I'm doing my Mighty Thor videos, I feel like I've got to be an apologist for Thor, for Jane Foster at least. So I do actually I have always made those videos for 2 or 3 videos defensively, and they never came out the way that I wanted them to because I was speaking defensively, and I should have just been talking about my thing. If somebody complains, that's on you, brother. That's on you, sister. I'm just trying to do my thing. You know what I'm saying? And because I've made that mistake, that's why I'm viewing this writing as a mistake also, because that's what it looks like. That's what it's reading like to me, like it's being written defensively. And it's a shame because, like I said, it is a really good story. You get to meet not too many new characters, but you get to see a very different form of Michael Morbius. And you get to see him as not a hero, but something far removed from a villain, and something far less than the typical tragic, hero or tragic villain even that we're used to reading. So this is a very different take on Morbius, and I really did dig this. I did. There's only 9 issues in this. Hopefully there's also the issue 699.1 that you're able to grab a hold of. But this was in the Marvel Now, Join the Revolution thing, and I did enjoy it. So even though, like I said, even though there were some writing issues, and at some point, like with Spider-Man, the art wasn't great at certain key moments where I feel like they should have been, it didn't dissuade me at all from reading this all the way through. This was great. I didn't read them all back when they first came out. I grabbed a couple of the later issues, but I wasn't able to get my hands on the earlier issues. So I just kind of went, okay, I don't really know what's going on here that well. How did this all happen? So digitally, I was able to find them, and I read them, and yeah, I definitely enjoyed this. It didn't stop me from reading all 9 of the issues. Boom, straight through. Very enjoyable. I'm going to recommend it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. And again, pointing out, if you are a role player, I think you will get especially especially the most bang for your buck from this particular story. I'm just putting that out there. All right, guys, I'm going to leave that at that. Good couple of stories. Great. I would love to see this continue. Genuinely, I'd love to see it continued. And even though, like I said, I complained to a degree about the writing and where I think the writer went wrong, I feel that he could actually still pick this story up and just finish what he'd started. Joe Keatinge. I feel like he could pick the story up where he left off and just continue the story where it was. I don't think that we've seen too much of Morbius in between 2013 and now 2018. Correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, there's that. Guys, I'm going to let this one go. Links in the description below if you want to purchase this either through digital or physical copies. And that's going to be it for me, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.